Today I'm going to show you a series that I do of kind of, yeah, we could call it fascia release, working on my own body for throat pain, throat gripping, tension. Uh, and for me, it's related to intense anxiety and panic. And often it's accompanied also by some like chest gripping and chest pain. But the thing that gets me the most when I'm in this experience is this throat gripping, like someone's almost kind of strangling me from the inside. And there are some instinctive things that I do with my body to actually connect me to what's happening in a way that isn't trying to escape it, is acknowledging what is happening, and then brings me into my body in a conscious way instead of in an unconscious, panicky way, and it helps me move through it instead of stay stuck in it. And it's that connecting with my body that, for me, really helps me. And then, of course, actually addresses the actual physical tension related to what's happening. Before I show you this series of things that we're going to do here, you don't need any tools. It's just going to be your hands, by the way. But before we do that, I want to just take a moment to say I've been MIA. I want to acknowledge that. Maybe you've noticed and maybe not, but the last video I put out, I think, was somewhere around late January or early February. And those last two videos, I know you guys have really loved them, and they were filmed in our house in Durango. And right now I'm sitting in my new home in a hotel in Texas. And some of you might be aware, if you are subscribed to my email newsletter, that I was moving here in late January. Kind of suddenly, like it was actually planned for a few months, but we didn't know that we were going to be moving that quickly. We had kind of planned to move to Austin, Texas, Stefan and I, sometime in the spring or by August when our lease was up, but we actually were able to get out of our lease kind of suddenly. And we packed up our house real quick and moved, and this is the only plant I have with me from that beautiful place that we filmed a lot of our videos for you. And the reason I'm sharing this is that this panic and anxiety that I'm talking about related to throat tension is something I've been experiencing myself really intensely for the last week. It has been a very intense, adventurous, stressful, and I would even say traumatic 2 months of being here in Texas. And I plan on sharing that story in a few days because it's related to what I'm going to share today. But today I do want to focus on this throat series of kind of fascia release bodywork that you can do if you also experience sometimes this panic and anxiety and the related throat pain and throat tension. But I want to just get you a little excited for the coming video if this topic is interesting to you, and that will be coming out in a few days. I'm going to be talking about basically what happened to me, like why I got triggered into an anxiety panic state. In my experience, I call these nervous system patterns, and it's a learned behavior from adverse childhood experiences or trauma experiences. And then at the same time, it's also, for me, wrapped up in my body, alerting me to maybe doing something against my better judgment. So all that's kind of wrapped up. I'm going to be talking about fear of pain and fear of freedom. So I hope you'll stay tuned and watch that video too, if anxiety and panic and this throat thing and it sucks, doesn't it? It's awful. I hate that feeling. And so I want to offer my insights as to why it happens and then how we can actually move out of it and rewire, like actually identify the pattern and rewire. So watch for that video in a couple days. Right now, coming back to this theme of throat tension. So for me, it manifests maybe not all the way up sometimes, but if it's really bad, it'll manifest kind of all the way up to my jaw. But it doesn't really go beyond that. It's like someone has me, by the throat from the inside. That's what it feels like to me. And I almost start feeling like I can't swallow, and my tone of voice changes. I get kind of frog-like in my voice, and it just hurts. But at the same time, I'm like panicky and anxious. And so if this is you, if this describes you, the coming video, I'm going to actually talk about how I get myself kind of through the anxiety and panic. This video is about how to connect to your body and what's happening sensation-wise, and then how to actually move your body through the experience with some fascia release in the throat. So for me, I instinctively go to my throat with my hands. And there are a few ways that you can do this. Actually, there are many ways you can get into this area. And I've put out some videos before that we'll link to in the description box below this video, where you can use your fingers here and pin your tissue to your subclavius and clavicle area, and then do head movements. So you can combine this with other things that I've put out. And again, we'll link to any relevant throat, SEM, scaling, subclavius videos below. But this, what I want to show you today, I've never put out before. And I found myself doing it instinctively, and I was like, oh, I should film a video. So what we're actually getting into, where I feel the most tension and the most pain when I have this anxiety and panic, is like right in the middle of my throat, like that Adam's apple area or the swallowing area. I imagine actually right behind where I'm touching is like my thyroid is back in there. And I'm really fascinated at what this might have to do with the thyroid's relationship to speaking our truth and sovereignty and self-ownership and agency and feeling confident to move through the world and speak your truth and express yourself through choices and decisions. And all of that, I think, is wrapped up in what happened for me and what thrust me into the panic and anxiety. So we're getting right into this area. And the thumb here is going to be your tool. And I have to issue a word of caution here. We're going into the throat. So you don't want to ever poke in, right? It's a really sensitive area. There's a ton of, muscles here, small little muscles. Of course, there's bones back in there. You want to be really careful. So I recommend being gentle at first. And then you can get, more intense with it if you like like the way it feels once you know this terrain. So you aren't going right along the bones there in the middle. I like to go on either side. So it's kind of like pinching with your two fingers and then your thumb. And then I'm just gonna gently move my head side to side. So this is gonna be really hard for me to do and talk at the same time. But what we're kind of there. So I'm clunking. If you've heard me before talk about clunks, we're trying to shear some fascia. There are these little muscles in there. And it might not be visible on camera, but that's where it is for me, one of them. Ooh, there's a good one. Oh, it's still really tight. So I'm going to let myself do what I do when I'm working on myself here and just explore. And hopefully watching me will help you. Your body's maybe different than mine. I've noticed that the right side is a lot worse than the left side on me, which is convenient because I get to use my right hand. So if you wanted to use your thumb, it might be the other. Yeah, I'm like not ambidextrous. So it feels a little weird over here. But thankfully this side's, I've found I can use either, my right hand to do both sides, and these fingers work pretty well over here. So I can get into the other side with my fingers, and then this side with my thumb. But you can try both. So that's kind of, we're like looking for these tiny little muscles and kind of strumming them. And, you might even just like massage it a little bit, get to know the terrain you're on. Something else I really like to do that's really calming actually before I kind of get in there is just touching it and stroking it a little, like it's with the flats of my fingers. It actually just feels really nice. um, and you can start up under the chin if you want. So what I just did is I'm kind of pinning with my head lower down. My hands kind of stay where they are, and then my head moves. And that kind of gives a compression and then a stretching. But this is where we're really, at least for me, that's where that gripping is. And so it's like just kind of trying to get in there any way you can. These little stroking movements. And you can, and then like I said, you can combine it if you want with other things. But for me, this whole line is what I'm going after when I'm in this state. It's like, oh, and I just sit here and go back and forth and side to side. So you can look left and right, or you can tilt. And they're going to do different things. So I recommend trying out different things. But here's the thing. If this is the first time you're ever going, you're ever going into your throat like this, you might be tempted to move really quickly. It's kind of a foreign area. Maybe it's really intense. Maybe, it's tender. Slow down. So I can move fast because I know what I'm doing, but I would really recommend that you just go really slow and try to, see, I'm like messing up my vocal cords a little bit doing this while talking, but go really slow and just explore. So the goal here is that we're actually trying to identify the individual kind of muscles, and then maybe where there's a little stickiness or a little thickness, a little density, tenderness, soreness, anything that you can identify, that's maybe where the gripping is happening for you. You're trying to pin it with your thumb and then use your head and neck movement to release it. So these are really small, oh, right there. It's like that's a muscle. I don't honestly know which one is which. There are so many little hyoid muscles, they're called here. Oh, yeah. And then you can do stuff like this. Like just, so there's a lot you can do. But that back and forth or tilting, while compressing a piece is my favorite way to do it. And then if you're like me, when you enter the state, I mean, it's like my whole chest, neck is gripping. So I also like combining this with the neck release technique that I have put out here on YouTube, that is with the blue balls. The rad balls, if you have any of the double fascia release tools, then you can get into your neck. And again, we'll link to those in the description below. And then I want to leave you with a thought here. If you're trying this for anxiety and panic related throat tension, like maybe you don't. If you're somebody watching this and you simply have, maybe you've strained your vocal cords for some reason, or you have throat tension or throat pain for reasons unrelated to anxiety and panic, then by all means give this a try just as I described and maybe focus on the physical. But if you are somebody like me who experiences this related to anxiety and panic, what is really helpful for me is combining this with some recent kind of mental tools that I've given here on YouTube. So we'll link to those as well. But it's naming what is and connecting to what's happening instead of trying to get yourself out of it or convince yourself it's not happening. So for me, it's actually the most helpful to name, I'm experiencing anxiety. Okay, like I'm anxious. I feel anxious. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling panic. I'm feeling throat tension. I feel my throat closing. I feel a lot of, gripping here. I feel, or, you're naming what is. So you're naming what you feel. You're naming the state you're experiencing, you're naming what's happening, and you're not trying to convince yourself it's not happening. And then by actually connecting to your body and going, it's like, hi body, hi, like I'm here with you. Like I acknowledge that you're terrified, like you're panicking and you have anxiety and there's this throat tension manifesting, and I'm listening, like I'm listening to you. I'm here, I'm listening. And this is what helps me get to the place where I can actually start to identify the pattern, move through the anxiety instead of staying stuck in it, and then get to the place where I can name the pattern and what I have to do to change it, to interrupt it, to make a different choice than staying in that automated behavior of anxiety and panic with specific triggers, because there's always a trigger for it. So I hope you'll stay tuned and catch the other video that I'll be uploading soon about kind of that backstory and the more mental process related to anxiety. But I wanted to offer this to connect to your throat area and that throat tension and pain when you have anxiety and panic. So I'd love to hear from you if you try this or if you have any questions for me. I know, I didn't give you exact sequences and all that. I really want to encourage all of you, if you're watching this and you want to do this for yourself, my best advice is always to get to know your body, because your body's going to be different than me. Try the things I'm offering and then go off the map, like experiment a little bit beyond what maybe I even showed you here, and make it work for you and your body instead of thinking you have to do exactly what I'm showing you in the video, because maybe it's manifesting a little bit differently for you than it does for me. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope this is really helpful if this describes you and is your experience sometimes. And then I look forward to sharing the other video with you very soon.